Good morning, guys. Let me welcome you to this live webinar. And today I want us to go into the factors or the trees, the importance of trees. And basically, our topic of the day will be trees as the drivers of climate change, and how can trees help reduce or increase carbon emissions or the carbon emission levels. So the topic of today will be basically looking at the advantages of trees, how important are trees to us, and as much as we want to embrace the bold challenge of planting 1 trillion trees by 2020 and by 2030, what are some of the repercussions that can come with that, putting in mind that the current tree cover of the world has been reduced by as much as 46%. So I welcome you all to this today's discussion. And as you do that, please do remember to subscribe to our channel and follow us for more engaging kind of sessions. So to begin off, I would like to first of all state that my name is Jackson Kinyanji. I'm the founder of Climate Change Kenya organization, and I'm a climate reality leader. On top of that, I am also a PhD scholar in agroclimatology, and I'm also the Nakuru County Youth Environmental Award winner. So with that, let me dwell and jump straight into the topic of the day. And basically, I'll start off by looking into what is this that we need to know when it comes to climate and climate change in terms of trees and tree cover. So we're going to start off by looking into the global tree statistics that we have. And when you look at the global tree statistics that we have currently, it states that there are 15 billion trees. 15 billion trees are being cut down yearly, a loss of more than 2 trees for every person. Also, on top of that, the number of trees has fallen by 46% since the Industrial Revolution. And now we have, that is 3 trillion trees remaining. So that one tells you that we are currently approaching the 50% devastation in terms of deforestation, in terms of the trees that we have worldwide. And something needs to be done in terms of that. What is the distribution of the remaining tree cover, which constitutes around 54%? We have 1.39 trillion trees, which is the largest, comprising of the tropical and subtropical regions. We also have the second one, which is the 0.74 trillion, which is the boreal, and then 0.61 trillion, which is the temperate region. The distribution of the global forest by climate domain include the following, as we had discussed earlier and looked earlier, that is the remaining 3.4 trillion. We have 45%, which is comprised of the tropical forest tree cover. That is where we have Brazil, we have Africa, the equatorial part of it. And then secondly, we have 27% constituting the boreal tree cover. And then we have the temperate constituting 16% of the tree cover. And then we have the subtropical constituting what we call the 11% of the tree cover. What does this tell you? What kind of message does it send to us? So the message is that we need to up our game. We need to improve our tree cover, because as much as we are looking into this, there's something that needs to be done, especially when it comes to the others which are being reduced, boreal, the temperate, and the subtropical. Again, we have the distribution in terms of the deforestation. What is the main driver for deforestation or the loss of tree cover worldwide? Let's start off with North America. In North America, you'll see that 43% of the tree loss in that continent is due to wildfire. Also, we have Europe. In Europe, wildfires are not as much compared to North America. So the forest percentage is high, 95%. We are having Latin America, here now we are talking about 59% is commodity driven. That is the deforestation part, or the biggest deforestation aspect of it is due to the commodity driven deforestation. That is the demand in the market in terms of the raw material for building, the raw material for charcoal and burning and all that. In Africa, the largest percent, that is 94%, the reason why there is a lot of deforestation in Africa is due to shifting to agriculture. Due to the high population in Africa and lack of space, people are encroaching into the forested areas with an aim of engaging in agricultural activities so as to sustain their daily food or to maintain the food security that is paramount for each person to live. In Southeast Asia, the largest percent, 80%, is due to commodity-driven deforestation. And you have seen the other commodity-driven deforestation was in Latin America at 59%, but Southeast Asia is leading, that is 80%. That is where we have the highest demand when it comes to tree and tree products. When we come to Oceania, here they're talking about the oceanic and the water masses and the trees which are constituting all these coastlines and all that. That 1% is lost as a result of wildfire. Moving on, which are some of the top 10 countries worldwide that actually have the largest tree cover, or their forested areas are too large? One, we have Russia, leading at 8.1 million square kilometers. Secondly, we have Brazil, leading at 4.9 square kilometers. 4.9 million square kilometers. We have Canada at 3.4 million square kilometers. We have United States, China at 2.1 million square kilometers. We have Democratic Republic of Congo. It is the only one in Africa at number 6 at 1.5 million square kilometers. Australia, and we recently had a wildfire in Australia destroying a huge chunk of that 1.2 million square kilometers of forested area. Indonesia, Peru, and then India. So these are some of the nations that have the largest forested areas. Let us look now at the 15 countries that are leading in carbon emissions, and let's just see if there's a kind of correlation between the emissions they're producing and the tree cover they have. When you look at China is leading at 27%, contributing 27% of the global emissions in carbon emissions. But at what is the rank of it? Looking at your right of the slide, you'll see China is at number 5 in terms of the tree cover. It is top 5 ranked in tree coverage, but in pollution it is ranked number 1. United States is at number 2, 14.6%, but in tree cover wise it's number 4. India is ranked at number 3 in pollution of carbon emissions, 6.8%, but in terms of forested cover it is at number 10. Japan, Russia is there, number 4. In terms of 4.7% emission in terms of the global emissions, but in terms of forested cover, it is number 1. So there's a scenario here. The world top 5 emitters are the ones who are actually top 5 leading in terms of forested cover. I hope that does not mean that them planting a lot of trees gives them the right to pollute, gives them the right to emit a lot of carbon, because trees are just one but among the many channels that are able to sequester the carbon from the atmosphere. So planting a lot of trees does not give you a leeway to pollute or to continue polluting or engaging in the use of fossil fuels. Which are some of the top 10 countries with the lowest forested areas? The reasons can be many, ranging from lack of enough land in terms of climate. Some of them they're in arid and semi-arid areas, and forests and trees to grow in these areas is a huge burden. One is Qatar at 0.00%, San Marino, Greenland, Oman, Egypt at number 5. We have Libya, we have Mauritania, Djibouti, Kuwait, and number 10, Saudi Arabia. One similarity among all these countries is that they are all semi-arid countries. These countries are found in areas where the precipitation rate or the temperature rate is high and the precipitation is low. So this one forms a huge challenge when it comes to trees growing. Which are some of the main importance of trees? When you look at the main importance of trees, one of the leading main importances of trees is what we call carbon sequestration. And that is the reason why each and every country has embraced the Bond Challenge, as to plant enough trees to be able to sequester the carbon in the atmosphere. So one of the main importances, there are so many others importances, but one of the leading importances is what we call carbon sequestration. In carbon sequestration, we'll start off by looking into what or how does it play that huge role. The leaves play a huge role in the carbon cycle. They absorb the carbon in the atmosphere through their leaves, and then it is stored within the plant. From the slide, I have indicated the percentage-wise. In the leaves, 1% of the carbon is stored in the leaves. 40% is stored in the trunks and branches. 13% is stored in the tree's roots. And the rest, which is constituting around 45%, is stored in the soil organic matter. So this one tells you a huge chunk of that carbon which is sequestered from the atmosphere is stored in the trunks and the branches and also in the roots. A combination, a total, plus the leaves will come to around 54%. So 54% of the carbon being sequestered from the atmosphere is stored within the trees. So when you cut down one tree, be sure that 54% of the carbon that had been sequestered earlier has been released into the atmosphere. But not only cutting down the trees, you can cut down the tree but use it in a form where the carbon is still stored within the wood. But burning it will release the carbon. Those are other forms. Decaying will release the carbon from the trees. But using it to form furniture, using it to construct permanent structures that you are not going to actually burn them, the carbon is still stored. The Bonn Challenge. What is the Bonn Challenge? The Bonn Challenge was a treaty that was signed in Bonn, in Germany, in September, that is of 2011. And the main purpose of it was to encourage the countries, each and every country or each and every signatory in that treaty, to plant enough trees so as to counteract the effect of carbon emissions. What were some of their resolutions they came up with? The Bonn Challenge is a global goal to bring 150 million hectares of degraded and deforested landscape into reforestation by 2020. So by 2020, one of their aim is to plant 150 million hectares of trees into this. So trees should be planted into 150 million hectares. And by 2030, they should have planted up to 350 million hectares. The Bonn Challenge is very paramount in ensuring that we attain the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, because it has been realized that with planting of trees, with afforestation and reforestation of trees, it ensures what we call food security, which is one of the SDGs. It ensures economic security, it ensures water security, it ensures energy security, and finally, it ensures climate security. All these are embraced within the SDGs. The Bonn Challenge has seen a fair share of its benefits. One is in the restoration of China lowest plateau. You can see the before and after pictures, clearly showing that the before restoration in China lowest plateau, before the Bonn Challenge, was degraded, but after, it has now become a flourishing kind of vegetation, which has improved the livelihood of the people living around it by increasing the economic security and food security. The other one is South Korea, the restoration. In 1960, you can see above there, that area was degraded. But after they entered into the restoration aspect of it, the tree and the vegetation aspect of it improved. This one came with it, what we call the carbon sequestration was improved, and also food security. The Bonn Challenge also has been seen working in Ethiopia. Before restoration, you can see what happened there. There was a degradation aspect of it. After planting, it became greener. And Ethiopia led by planting 350 million trees in one day. So they actually entered into the Bonn Challenge with full force. Niger is another one. In 1960s, you can see that piece of land there was degraded, but today it has improved. Soil erosion has been curtailed. It has helped in what we call sequestration of carbon. It has actually helped improve biodiversity in the area, and in essence, helped to improve food security and climatic security of the people living in that area. Also, the same scenario can be seen in Eritrea, before and after. That is, before the forestation aspect was embraced, the bone challenge was embraced, that area was dry. But after, it has flourished, and it has been able to reduce what you call desertification. Restoration in northern Tanzania. In northern Tanzania, it was a semi-arid area, deforested area, where people were actually engaging in agriculture, which was actually working at the devastation of the forest. But after they embraced this bone challenge, they planted trees, and the area has up to date been recovered. The people in the area are now even receiving carbon credits. Food security has been improved, climatic security, and all that. In African countries, what were the commitments of these countries to the bond challenge? In Africa, starting off with Kenya, Kenya committed to planting 5.1 million hectares of its land with trees. So 5.1 million hectares of Kenyan land has been designated to actually be afforested and be reforested. And that is part of the bond challenge. We have in other countries, Rwanda has dedicated 2 million hectares. We have in Burundi 2 million hectares likewise. Tanzania 5.2 million hectares. We have in Sudan dedicating 14.6 million hectares. And maybe the reason can be it can help Sudan in fighting some of the challenges they've been experiencing. Just recently, Sudan issued a climate crisis due to the floods, a 3 month climate crisis due to the flooding. So maybe planting the trees will help to curtail the flooding, because trees have been known to actually control the flooding aspect within an area. The net global emission pathways. One of the resolutions was that by 2030, they should be able to be at a point whereby, by 2020, they should be able to be at a point whereby they are at carbon net zero. Being at a carbon net zero means that you have actually embraced the green economy, you have actually planted enough trees so that you can counteract the carbon which had been emitted since the pre-industrial era. Which are some of the pathways, which are some of the ways we can be able to reduce our carbon footprints? In transport, we can offset it by using electrically fueled vehicles as opposed to using fossils. We should embrace the recycling kind of economy, that is a circular economy, reducing the waste. We should also be able to use what we call green energy in terms of the gases as opposed to the fossil fuels. So all these are ways whereby we can be able to reduce our carbon footprint on Earth as long as we embrace the green economy and the green energy that we're looking forward to. Which are some of the statistics which are out there? One tree actually sequesters 22.6 kg of CO2 per year, or equivalent to 100 kg of CO2 over 25 years. So one tree can go a long way in actually sequestering 22.6 kg of CO2 per year and 1,000 kg of CO2 in over 25 years. So planting one tree can actually be able to take us a long way. One vehicle has been equated to sequestering or removing or emitting 4,700 kg of CO2 per year. And for us to actually remove that amount from the air, we need to plant 208 trees. So that means that each and every vehicle owner should be able to plant 208 trees whenever you buy a vehicle. What about the indoor house kind of pollution? Houses emit 7,500 kg of CO2 per year, and to offset that, we need to plant 331 trees to offset that. So that means that if you have a vehicle and if you have a house at the same time, and you're using all these kind of electric gadgets inside the house, from the coolers and all this, then it means that you need to plant a total of 539 trees if you have a vehicle and if you have a house at the same time. Which are some of the other advantages of planting trees? We said one of the main advantages was to actually help us in carbon sequestration. Which are the other advantages? The other advantages here are: one, they help us to breathe. And in helping us to breathe, here I'm saying a single mature leafy tree is estimated to produce a day's supply of oxygen for anywhere from 2 to 10 people. So one tree can serve 2 to 10 people in its lifetime. It also forms a habitat for animals. Nearly half of the Earth's known species live in forests, including 80% of the biodiversity on land. 300 million people live in forests worldwide, including an estimated 60 million indigenous people whose survival depends entirely on native woodlands. Number four, they keep us and the earth cool. Very true. Urban trees help buildings stay cool. They reduce the need of electric fans and air conditioners. The urban heat island effect is whereby in urban towns, if you see from this picture, you can see that the temperature is increasing, and it is increasing, it's at the peak correlating with the downtown. The downtown area, the temperatures are very high, that is the urban areas. But when you look at the rural areas, the temperatures are low. The reason being that in urban areas, the downtown areas, there are less tree covers and there are more buildings, which are a source, or they help in this urban heat island effect by trapping the heat in that area. So we need to increase our green cities. We need to make our cities green. We need to increase our parks by planting more trees so as to reduce the urban heat island effect, with an aim of ensuring that the world maintains its temperatures below the 1.5 degrees centigrade as stated by the UNFCCC. So these are some of the things that we need to look at. They help in the formation of rain, which is very important. Rain here, I'm talking about precipitation. In some areas, it can fall as snow, as sleet, as hail. So here I'm talking about large forests can influence the regional weather patterns and even create their own microclimates. Number six, they control flooding. Tree roots are key allies in heavy rain, especially for low-lying areas like river plains. They help the ground absorb more of a flash flood, reducing soil loss and property damage by slowing the flow. This is very true. When deforestation happens in catchment areas, all this water seeps down the hill, and all those people who are living within the watershed area, they're actually affected. So trees are known to reduce the speed at which the water is flowing over, giving groundwater recharge to take place. Number seven, they improve groundwater recharge. In groundwater recharge is that they help to trap that water and reduce the speed at which the water is flowing over the surface. And in return, the water is absorbed, or is given enough time to be absorbed within the Earth's surface, and thereby being able to fill up the water table, which is very important because some of the lakes are actually dependent on this water table. The boreholes which are being dug, they're dependent on these water tables. So yes, increasing our water table and giving enough time for groundwater recharge is very, very important. Number eight, they reduce stormwater discharge. That is mostly from towns, urban centers, because they are all have this kind of pavements which don't give time for water to be absorbed. They don't give even space for water to be absorbed into the ground. But once you plant trees, once you plant vegetation, it creates that conduit for water to be absorbed into the ground. These are some of the advantages we're looking into. Number nine, they block the wind. Blocking of the wind is very important because remember from this slide, you can see the dominant wind is being blocked by the tree fence. So the crops on this area are not destroyed by the wind. Some strong winds will actually destroy the crops. Strong winds will lead to wind erosion. So all this we don't want. So the trees can form a barrier and help in reducing wind erosion. Number 10, they prevent erosion. From this picture, you can see The roots have been able to hold the soils together intact, thereby reducing what we call wind erosion, thereby reducing water erosion. So all this has been curtailed by the essence of planting trees, whereby the soils help to keep the soils, the roots of the plants, of the trees, they help to keep the soils intact. Number 11, they clean up dirty soil. It has been known that trees can either sequester the toxins away or degrade them to be less dangerous. This is a helpful skill, letting trees absorb sewage overflows, roadside spills, or contaminated runoffs. So this is one aspect whereby trees can help to sequester and to filter all these toxics or these toxins from the pollution aspect coming from either the overflows, the roadside spills, through the process of osmosis, whereby the water is absorbed through the roots. Number 12, they muffle soil pollution. They muffle noise pollution. In noise pollution here, I'm talking about the aspect of vehicles in towns. With vehicles in towns, engines roaring, vehicles hooting and all that, and residential areas next to these roads, trees and using fences, live fences, can help to curtail or reduce the noise pollution. Well-placed trees can cut background sound by 5 to 10 decibels, or about 50% as heard by human ears. This is very important. So we need to embrace the use of live as opposed to dead fences. They feed us by providing food, which is very true. Trees provide food. We have trees that are actually producing fruits from apple trees and all that. So all these trees, they produce food, either for man or for animals in one way or the other. They heal us. Trees have been known to have medicinal values. Forests give us natural medications and increasingly inspire synthetic spin-offs. The asthma drug, theophylline, comes from cacao trees, for one, while a compound in eastern red cedar needles fights drug-resistant bacteria. So trees in general and vegetation in general, they are known to have medicinal values. All these are advantages of trees, but the main one we talked about was carbon sequestration. They are raw materials for industrial products. I said we can use the trees in a safe way. As long as we don't burn it, then the carbon will still be stored within the structures. In the table, the carbon is still there. In the desks, pencils, bed table, the sheds, wardrobes, as long as we don't burn or actually burn or decompose these wood structures, then they will release the carbon. They create jobs. This is where I was talking about economic security. They help to create jobs. More than 1.6 billion people rely on forests to some extent for their livelihoods. According to the UN, that is 1.6 billion people rely on forests. 10 million are directly employed in forest management or conservation. So this is a huge industry contributing to the GDP of the globe in a huge aspect. They help to create aesthetic value for beauty. So that is it. They help to create beauty and all that. And some of them, they're even tourist attraction sites. People come as far as Europe, Asia, to just visit even Africa to see some of the rare or indigenous tree species. They reduce desertification. Forests have a major role to play in reversing desertification trends. However, tree cultivation is much more difficult in arid zones. As we had talked about the 10 lowest forested countries in the world, some of them we saw that almost all of them, they are semi-arid areas. And maybe the main reason why they don't have that large tree vegetation cover is because of the difficulties they're facing in terms of growth is slower in arid areas, survival rates are lower, the plant protection presents great difficulty. So this might be some of the challenges they are facing. Which are some of the disadvantages of planting trees? In essence, the first one is carbon emissions. Once you plant a tree, it absorbs and sequesters carbon. And you have seen that a single tree stores 54% of the sequestered carbon in its parts, that is the trunks, the roots, and the leaves. But if you decide to burn this tree, decompose this tree, then it means that it will release all that carbon into the atmosphere and will have gone back to the drawing board. The other disadvantage is most of the plantations that are happening worldwide in respect to the bond challenge, most countries or most people are actually embracing monoculture plantations as opposed to natural forest. Monoculture plantations have a disadvantage. In monoculture plantations, you plant a tree species, applying fertilizer so that it can actually give you yields in a span of 5 to 10 years. And then what do you do with it? You cut it down, and then we now go back to square one because now you have reduced the tree cover which we were actually fighting to reach. So the path to follow is to embrace natural forests, which are not for commercial gains, but monoculture plantations are for commercial gains. As you can see from this picture on your left, the plantations are uniform, so it is easy to harvest them because they are of one species. But on the other side, you can see there's a diverse of tree species. They are not planted in a single row of or column, so it means that these tree species cannot be essentially used for commercial purposes. Man has no hand in controlling natural forests, but in monoculture, man induces their growth by use of fertilizers and all these things. So in essence, we can be, we might be thinking we are fighting climate change by reducing the carbon emissions, but in essence, we are increasing the carbon footprints by encouraging monoculture plantations. So we should move from monoculture plantations, which are commercially driven, to natural kind of forests. The other disadvantage is that they reduce soil water moisture. Some trees are known to be highly dependent on water, and once you plant a tree species without knowing whether it is highly water dependent or not, it will end up drying the area where it is planted, and this can cause a lot of problems in terms of agricultural loss, food loss, because the area will become arid, and yet it was flourishing with water. So we need to consider what kind of tree species we're planting and where. So these are the tree species. I've arranged them in 3 columns from the high demanding to the low demanding. So the low water demanding species here are birch, elder, the fig, hazel, holly, honey locust, up to the tulip tree. So these low water demanding trees are very good to be planted in arid and semi-arid areas where there is no enough water. We have moderate trees that require moderate kind of water. The acacia, the alder, the apple, the ash. All these trees are very good to be planted in areas where the amount of water is moderate. We have the high demanding trees, the cypress, the elm, eucalyptus, the oak, the poplar, the willow, the hawthorn. These trees are very, very important in reclaiming land that is waterlogged. Areas that are waterlogged, that they have more water, once you plant these trees that have a high demand for water, the land can be reclaimed since the trees will help in soaking up that water that had actually encroached that area. Also, we have another disadvantage. When used as a source of firewood, it leads to what you call the emissions being released into the atmosphere. So I said trees can be deforested, trees can be cut down, but we need to use it for purposes that will still help it to store its carbon. Making furniture, making pencils, making these house structures, the carbon is still stored within that wood structure. But once we go the way of degradation, decomposing, and burning it, the carbon is again emitted into the atmosphere and will be going back to square zero. In Kenya, we have some policies, we have agencies which are tasked with ensuring we attain the 5.1 million hectares being planted by being planted and filled with trees so as to meet the bond challenge of 2020 of attaining 150 million hectares being planted by trees. We have a Ministry of Environment headed by its Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Keriako Tobiku, its Permanent Secretary, Dr. Chris Kipto, and other semi-autonomous government agencies which work hand in hand with the ministry, that is the National Environmental Management Authority, the Kenya Water Towers Agency. Here we're talking about the Kenya Forest Service, the Kenya Forest Research Institute, and the National Environmental Trust Fund. Also, we have Environmental Management and Coordination Act institutions. Here we're talking about the National Environmental Council, the National Environmental Trust Fund, the National Environmental Tribunal, and the Public Complaints Committee. All these bodies, they work in synergy to ensure that the trees are monitored in terms of number. They ensure there is regulated deforestation. They ensure our water towers are secured. They ensure there is controlled, there's controlled encroachment, and there is no encroachment into the forested areas. So these are the agencies that are tasked with ensuring Kenya has protected its forested areas. Kenya has gone a step further by encouraging or commercialization of bamboo. And why? What is the reason of why Kenya is encouraging the commercialization of bamboo? Putting in mind that they want to shift people from the using or cutting down of trees, which take a long time to grow. So bamboo has been known, one, to require no irrigation. It grows rapidly and can be harvested in 3 to 5 years. It produces 35% more oxygen than any other tree species. It sequesters more carbon and it's carbon neutral. It's an excellent soil erosion inhibitor. It has lower environmental impacts when used to produce fibers compared to synthetic fibers. It is grown without pesticides or chemical fertilizer. It grows in a wide range of environments. It is the best in building and construction, capable of supporting as much as 16 tons. And lastly, it has medicinal value and has been used to treat kidney diseases. So these are some of the advantages that we need to embrace and look at and shift from using those tree species that take a long time to grow and to mature. Because once we cut it down, then to grow another one, it will take almost 10 to 20 years for it to actually its full potential of carbon sequestration. But once we use and embrace commercialization of bamboo, then it means that we'll give space for other tree species to grow and now concentrate on bamboo, which is better, almost 4 times better than the normal wood species that we have or tree species that we use for commercial purposes, because we have put in mind that the tree industry supports a lot of people. It gives employment to more than 1 billion people worldwide. So yes, we need to commercialize and give people an exit point. If you tell them not to cut down the trees for commercial purposes, give them an exit point. And the exit point is bamboo. Bamboo has all these advantages and more. So we need to embrace it. So the conclusion of the day is that, yes, we can plant trees. But remember, the planting of trees comes with its own fair share of losses and gains. Once you plant a tree, ensure it survives, ensure you not cut it down or degrade it, because there will be no gain you'll have attained by cutting down the tree, and yet you had planted it with the essence of carbon sequestration. So trees can help to fight climate change. Trees can help to reduce carbon emissions, but this is one of the channels. There are so many others that we need to look into. We need to cut down our fossil emissions. We need to embrace green energy. So these are some of the other ways. But planting of trees should not cheat us or should not be a blindfold to us that we can actually continue with the use of fossil fuels and trees will continue sequestering the carbon. And with that marks the end of my presentation. And I want to encourage you to go to our website, do register, do subscribe, and go to our YouTube channel for more engaging sessions as these ones. And with that, I want to say thank you so much, and do remember to subscribe to our channel. Goodbye.